Today we're getting into some dark psychology. We're going to go into what happened step by step with NXIVM and how Keith Raniere used some basic principles used in brainwashing, as well as some textbook ways to create a human slave. Can it be done? Yes, pretty easily if you know what to do. Without going into the backstory of NXIVM or Keith Raniere, most of you have heard of this already. Let's skip straight forward to the methods that were used. First of all, most people that have any doubt in their life might be looking for self-improvement or self-actualization courses. And if you're aware of how persuasion works, as long as you see the person in charge as someone of authority, you will listen. He used social proof by having people that were celebrities as part of his social group. Those people would provide the social proof to all those that would sign up for his classes to show that this was a man that was powerful and had some authority. And so they would immediately put him on a pedestal. In these intensive classes, you could sign up for a 5-day or a 16-day intensive, and you would be systematically broken apart into groups based on your personality types and based on whether or not you were a person that responded to control. About 25% of people are easily led. It takes no work whatsoever. But there's another 20 or so percent on top of that that can be led as long as they see the social proof. So that means about 40 to 45% of people would fall into the category he was looking for. These intensive courses were costing anywhere from $1,500 on up to like $5,000. So at a primary level, there was a feeling of what's called the sunk cost fallacy, where you feel like you have to complete something because you have so much already invested. Once all of that is in place, you bring those people into your facility, and that provides a little bit of novelty, something new, something they've not experienced before, and something unfamiliar. That puts every sense on alert. These people will be taught rudimentary leadership skills, rudimentary life skills, basic things about time management, financial management, leadership traits, leadership values, how to organize and run teams. And all the while, they'd be being love-bombed by the people that were in charge of the organization. So it would build them up and they would feel like they really belonged there. So then the next step with this cult-like behavior is that they would ask them to make commitments. And in those commitments, it's similar as if you were to join some kind of a group that asked for some sort of a financial fee. After that's out of the way, then they would have rituals to perform. And a good cult always has rituals, whether they make sense or not. One of the ritualistic games they would play is called ratings and rankings. And they would take groups of women and put them in circles, and they would let them self-organize from 1 to 10 or from best to worst by way of attraction. Then they would do the same thing with the women, sorting themselves by way of what they thought would be honesty. And then they did the same thing with the women, sorting themselves by way of intelligence. This begins to break down the character of anyone who wasn't on the top of those lists. Now comes the point where they would begin to isolate these people that were there. They would ask them to cut off communication with family and with friends just for the time that they were in this intensive training. And the only communication they could have with their phones would be with the leaders. And they would text them in the middle of the night at all hours with one word: ready? And the women had 60 seconds to reply that they were ready for whatever it was that needed to be done. And if they didn't reply within 60 seconds, the entire group of women would be forced into physical punishment. And this would start what's called the depersonalization process. And during this process, he would mimic what was called the Stanford prison experiment. If you want information on that, look that up online. And he would break the women into groups, and they would become prisoners for the game. And the prison guards, which were the leaders in this group, would insult them, would talk about their weight, and would talk about their appearance and about their intelligence. And this would go on for a couple of days, further breaking them down and stripping them of identity and agency. After that part was over, they would be forced to take photographs of their own genitalia that was used for what the NXIVM group called collateral. And these are things that would be used for blackmail if the people ever decided to turn away from the group. They would sometimes be forced to wear dog collars and even be locked up in dog cages. And of course, the ones that were the most obedient and the most attractive would then be branded with Keith Raniere's initials. After this comes what's called the depletion process. At this point, those that were branded would be taken deeper into the organization, and they would be strictly restricted on calories, no more than 500 calories a day. And this causes immediate obedience. They would then be exposed to sleep deprivation, woke up all periods of the night, stripped of the ability to sleep more than an hour or two. Many times they would wake them up during the night periodically, and then in the middle of the night, while it was still dark out, they would take them outside and force them to march in the ice, in the snow, and then bring them back. So this process of obedience, de-individuation, and depletion would be repeated over and over. And it's only a matter of time before everyone will break. And by this time, they were completely broken down by way of identity and agency, and they would stay. And all of it started out with an opportunity to go to a retreat or an intensive self-actualization course. So next time you're invited to a retreat or an intensive or a self-actualization course or self-improvement course, especially one that is multiple days, maybe you should just follow what Nancy Reagan said all those years ago.
Just say no.